Right. Thank you very much and welcome everybody. I'm just a few minutes before we actually start off with our speakers. My name is Marina Ahmad. I'm the London Assembly member for Lambeth and Southwark, and I am also the chair of the Economy Committee and an anti-poverty and childhood hunger campaigner as well. And I'm absolutely delighted to be able to chair this session today at the start of London Poverty. Sorry, very late in the day on a Monday, I'm afraid. London Challenge Poverty Week, and this is the third one that I've been actively involved with. Today's session is about free school meals and understanding children's experience and maximising the uptake. Before we start and before I introduce our speakers, just a tiny bit of housekeeping. For our guests and participants, please will you keep yourselves on mute unless you are speaking. Please feel free to post questions in the chat and they will be then put to the speakers once we get to the question and answer session. And as Maddie has said, we are being recorded, but to reassure you, it's only the speakers who will be shown in the recording of that session that's going to be shared. So without any further ado, I'm going to, we're very lucky this today to have three speakers, Hannah Aldridge, Greta Defeyter and Dr. Claudia Sumner. And as each speaks, I will do a proper introduction. So if we're going to start with Aldridge, who is the Senior Policy and Researcher at Child Poverty Action Group. Over the last 3 years, CPAG has been working with a panel of 32 lower income parents in London, one from every borough, to understand what policy changes they want to see in their communities. Hannah will be speaking about the panel's opinions on free school meals and how provision can be improved. So Hannah, so all our speakers have 10 minutes. So Hannah, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction and thanks for joining us on a Monday evening. I'm going to attempt to share my screen because I'm more likely to keep to time if I have slides to keep me on track. So this is looking promising, and then I'll do this. There we go. Okay. I'm looking, I think we're rolling. No one said stop, so this is good. Okay, so I'm going to just speak briefly a bit about what we can do to improve the school lunch experience for secondary school pupils in London. And the objective here is to just talk about some small changes that can make a big difference to how pupils experience school food. So just before I launch off, it's like, well, who the hell are you? I'm Hannah Aldridge. I'm with Child Poverty Action Group. One of the things that we do is we explore the causes and impacts of child poverty, how they can be prevented and solved. But one of our focus regions is London because child poverty is so high and the experience is quite distinct in London as well. So some of the work that we do in London revolves around our London Family Panel, which, as Marina mentioned, it's a panel of 32 parents, one from every London borough. They're all in work and receive some sort of means tested benefit. They have at least one child who's primary school age, and none of them are white. And we wanted to have this panel as our reference point for kind of policy changes, because we feel that these are families that are very sort of directly affected by a lot of policies around poverty, but aren't necessarily always heard. So it was really important for us to kind of have this panel so we could talk to them, and we've been speaking to them a lot about how they feel about free school meals. And the other reference point I'm going to draw on is the Cost of the School Day project that has now concluded, but was working in London schools to hear the views of children and their families about how kind of the cost of the school day made it harder for some children to participate fully in the kind of school experience. So why does universal free school meals matter to CPAG? So universal free school meals is one of the big things that we're interested in and want to see delivered. And the reason for this is that many low-income families are missing out on free school meals in the capital. this year, because the mayor has now rolled out free school meals across primary schools universally, that means that 90,000 children who were in poverty but didn't qualify for free school meals are now accessing them. But there's still 120,000 children in poverty in secondary schools who aren't accessing free school meals because they don't qualify. Their income is low enough to be in poverty, but not low enough to qualify for free school meals. And the other reason why free school meals really matters is that those who do manage to qualify for it experience a lot of stigma. And this is a quote from one of the parents on our panel. She says that free school meal children are treated differently. Referring to her daughter, she's told she can't buy certain foods on free school meals. It's like wearing a big badge saying, I'm poor. It's heartbreaking to watch her come home hungry, as she would rather not go into the lunch hall and have her peers laugh at her. This is like, as much as we want children to have free school meals, when free school meals is only delivered to select people who are on a very low income, it does kind of create a level of stigma for those who do receive it. So what more can be done? I found this, I absolutely loved this photo that I found on our library of images, because I thought this was exactly the kind of look of an unimpressed secondary school child who wanted more to be done. So what's great is that a universal free school meal is being rolled out in primary this year in London. But what more can be done to help secondary school pupils, just to improve that experience, to reduce the stigma? So based on our Cost of School Day work and the work with parents, I want to give you 8 tips about what schools can do and what councils can do to work to improve the school meal experience. And there's essentially 4 tips around reducing that stigma and 4 tips around just how you can help lower income families with the cost of school lunch. So tip number 1, unused lunch funds. This is something Greta's going to go into a bit more detail in the next presentation. So I'm going to kind of gloss over it quite quickly. But essentially, the way that money is credited into lunch accounts for free school meals, if you've got a certain amount to spend if you're a pupil within a day, and if you don't spend that money, you lose it. Whereas if you're a child who isn't on free school meals and your parents have put money onto your account, you can use it if you didn't spend it one day. So children on free school meals are essentially kind of losing out. A year 8 pupil describes it as, if you're on free school meals, you get £2.40 a day. You can carry it over. You can't carry it over. It's not right. You should be able to. So what's the solution here? I mean, the solution isn't necessarily to spend any money. It's if paying pupils don't have their money deducted if they miss out on lunch, why shouldn't the same policy apply for free school meal pupils? They should be allowed to roll over their funds. So that's one way to kind of help free school meals children who are feeling stigma to feel less isolated. Next tip is around when children can eat. So one of the things that we find is that some schools don't allow their pupils to access free school meal funds during the break time if they go to the tuck shop. It means that they kind of feel stigmatized. They don't get to eat at the same times that their friends do. This is a year 7 pupil, says, I can't eat food at break time, only lunch. I wish I could. I feel out of place as I can't. I'm just sitting there. So again, another very easy solution, just allow free school meal funds to be used at any time of the day. Third problem is where children can eat. Many schools will allow some of the older children to leave the premises during lunchtime or eat outside or in a common room. If free school meals can only access their funds through the dining hall, they miss out on this. A sixth form pupil feels they have to sit on their own in the dining room, all the year 7s while their friends are outside. So the solution here would be potentially to provide takeaway options for free school meal pupils so they can get their lunch and then join their friends. And the last one around reducing stigma is around school trips. If you get a free school meal on a school trip, it makes you very identifiable as a child who gets free school meals. The teacher says, this year 8 pupils puts it, the teachers shout out, free school meals people, come and collect your lunch, and then you have to go and get your paper bag. This seems like an easy one that can be fixed if children were given their food the day before or somewhere in a slightly more discreet manner, they would be able to get their free school meals without having to be labelled as such. So then 4 more tips to come, and these are around how you can help low-income families that aren't necessarily on free school meals. So one of the ways that schools sometimes operate is that they have certain, if you've got a lunch account, parents can top up their child's lunch account that they can spend in the cafeteria over the week. But this can create difficulties. There are sometimes they have mechanisms that create difficulties for parents on a lower income. For example, this year 10 pupil says you have to put on £15 for the whole week, but what if your mum doesn't have it? You should be able to top it up by £1 or 2. So if your school has like a minimum payment, it can make it quite difficult for parents to kind of, if they've only got a small amount of money and they're going to be paid in a couple of days, they aren't able to top up with the small amount of money. They have to wait. But the solution here would be to allow the accounts to be topped up sort of weekly or daily, not have a minimum payment, have a designated, or if a family is sort of in acute financial difficulty, perhaps having a designated point of contact that they can reach out to kind of share this and come up with a solution. The next one is around insufficient funds. So if a child is going to the school cafeteria and they choose what they want to have lunch, they haven't calculated it correctly, or they realize that they've spent more than their amount, they kind of have to sort of change it, and they're singled out in front of their peers. So Year 8 pupil says it's unfair. If you don't have enough, they take it back, and it's really embarrassing. So one thing that schools can do is just have a policy on if dining staff can deal with it sensitively, how they can kind of communicate to children if they've kind of overspent their budget. Then a very similar issue is around unclear pricing. So it can be very difficult if children have to work within their free school meal budget to figure out when they've kind of exceeded it. This is a Year 9 pupil saying the prices, there's not prices on stuff. You don't know how much it will cost till you get to the till, which is like incredibly stressful if you've got a set amount of money that you can spend. So an easy solution here would be to ensure that all items are clearly labelled with the correct prices, and that the pricing is easy to add up. Let's not have things that cost prime numbers because they're hard to add up. And then the final kind of point is around limited free school meal coverage. A lot of children, as I said at the beginning, 120,000 children in London are in poverty and they aren't getting access to free school meals because the threshold to qualify is incredibly low. This is a sixth form pupil saying not everyone is privileged enough to be able to afford the £2.30 each day. People who don't get free school meals, who can't afford to pay for them. So the solution here, this is the only solution that I've put in this whole slide deck that really has any financial implications, is to consider how you can extend the eligibility criteria for free school meals and introduce universal free school meals at secondary school. And then also just making sure that any of those who are eligible are registered. So in summary, the best approach to school lunch is a universal free school meals across primary and secondary school. The second best approach is expanding access to free school meals. But until then, there's lots and lots of things that secondary schools can do to improve the experience of school lunch for families on a lower income. And then I put in some links here if you want to find out more. There's more information about our parent panel, the cost of the school day resources, and you can always email me if you would like more information. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing and then probably reshare in a second.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I have just learned so much just from those few minutes. Thank you. Our next speaker is Greta Defeyter, who is a professor of development psychology in the Department of Social Work, Education and Community Wellbeing. Greta is the founder and director of the Healthy Living Lab at Northumbria University and has spent the last 20 years researching food insecurity, social injustice, school feeding programmes and holiday hunger programmes in the UK. Today she'll talk to us about a report that she's published in June on the financial risk that UFSM provision poses to schools in terms of accessing pupil premium, and also how much FSM money is lost when pupils are absent and cannot roll that money over to another day. Greta, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm going to do like a professor kind of approach here and ask Hannah to say next slide, please, as we go through, because I've had a few problems with my monitors here. So if that's all right with everybody. Okay, we're going to kick off, Hannah. So I'm going to go straight away and say next slide, please. Lovely. Okay, so let me introduce myself as you're looking at the slides. So I'm a professor of developmental psychology. I've spent nearly 20 years researching school breakfast programs, including the rollout of the breakfast program at Blackpool Council to all schools. And I've also researched a holiday activities and food program that's funded by the DFE, and done quite a lot of work with school meals. So here on the right-hand side, just at the top there's a photo of my little face poking out in amongst a throng of people there. That was at the Swedish Embassy when we were presenting the case for UK school meals, and also the English school food case study that I wrote in collaboration with Miles Bremner. And that was presented as part of the World Food Programme offer in conjunction with Professor Don Bundy. So school meals, let's just have a look at the evidence. So I'm a researcher and I present the evidence, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You'll be glad to know that generally it's pretty good. Okay, so colleagues at University of Essex, Angus Holford and Vegeta Rabe on the top left-hand side there, looked at evaluating the impact of universal infant free school meals. And they found as one of the main outcomes of the introduction of that program, there was a reduction in childhood obesity, which is a great public health outcome. Other projects, for example, one by Hanny and colleagues from the University of Cambridge, have also looked at the Universal Infant Free School Meals program. They found no improvement in consumption of fruit and vegetables or reduction in sugar sweetened beverages, but a reduction in food typically found in packed lunches, and often that's ultra-processed food. So it suggests there that finding, it was quite a large-scale study, that whilst we want to make sure that school meals are universal, we also have to have a mind on the quality and the nutritious and dietary intake of the meals that are served in schools if we really want to drive the impacts that we hope to see, both in terms of obesity and health, but also in terms of educational attainment. And I've just done a video and podcast for the Naked Scientists at the University of Cambridge about how food interacts with cognition, because it's not as straightforward as people think. And similarly, other researchers that are listed here have identified hunger in the classroom, the impact of school breakfast clubs. The Institute for Fiscal Study have brought out a really good report on expanding free school meals across England, with note to the application of the models that they've got then, costing models for London. So generally pretty good. Of course, I'm going to plug my chapter, but it's not my book, so I get nothing for plugging this, just so we're really clear. We have a forthcoming chapter that's coming out in a book in early January, looking at promoting equity in education, which I think in terms of social justice is what we're talking about quite a lot today. So next slide, please, Hannah. Okay. So here's the kind of like the sticky bits, if you like, about why I think it's an inefficient and socially unjust process in terms of awarding and allocating free school meals. So when I talk to schools and local authorities, they put an enormous amount of effort in to get pupils to register for free school meals. It's like a Herculean kind of effort from everybody concerned. But despite this, the DFE estimates that approximately 11% of total eligible pupils, so this is across primary and secondary, are not registered for free school meals. And for London estimates, I've put the link to our paper right there. Now, what normally happens is everyone says 90%, that's great. Well, we don't have to worry. But I'm going to show you the actual figures in a minute, and they may surprise you. So in terms of the school meals, it's not just a meal that's provided and alleviates that kind of cost of living crisis at the moment and pressure on households. It's also connected with how the DFE allocate part of pupil premium. So pupil premium was introduced by the coalition in 2010 with the aim of raising the attainment of disadvantaged or underserved children and effectively levelling up. Pupil premium funding is currently set at £1,455 at primary and £1,035 per secondary school pupil. So you can see right away that registering pupils for free school meals brings with it a real cost benefit to the school in terms of pupil premium. And that pupil premium money is not ring-fenced at the school. Quite importantly, a study done by the NEU showed that the introduction of universal infant free school meal, the removal of removed the parental incentives to register their children for free school meals, because the parents don't know about pupil premium. So if the meals are free anyway, what the parents think is, why do I have to register my child because the meals are free? And so the schools lack that pupil premium come to school through non-registration. So it's really important to keep the registration rates up, even when you have universal. And then also you have the loss of income to family at £2.42 per meal, a slightly more London current rate. And then we talk about the loss of rollover that Hannah alluded to for secondary schools. And I've put the link to the paper there for the loss of the rollover money as well. So next slide, please. Okay. I'm not going to talk at length to this slide because I know we're short of time, but I'm just going to point out here that we've done all of our analysis on collect data, which is DFE's own data. So the data is quite rigorous and robust in how we did our calculations. These aren't data that we collected. And if you go to the next slide, I'll walk everybody through the table. So here we go. So what we did is we used these data to estimate, according to each borough and across London, money that was missing, either going to the families through non-registration, so the savings per day of the cost of having to replace that free school meals that they were eligible for but hadn't signed up to. The cost to both primary and secondary schools in lost pupil premium money. So remember that slide I showed about the lost money going into schools. And finally, on the one but last column on the right-hand side, the estimated cost for secondary school pupils at the individual level and then borough level of not being able to roll the money over that Hannah was talking about. And so whilst London is at about 90% eligible, those that are eligible registering for free school meals, you can see that this collectively per annum is a loss of about 80 million to boroughs across London, and therefore to schools, and therefore to families, and therefore to individual pupils. So if I just walk you through, when we're looking at estimating the cost to families for primary school, which is the first column on the left-hand side, that's at just about 9.5 million. That's what's being lost to families who are eligible but not registering. Of course, the free school meals in London has resolved many of those issues because they're universal now, which is great news. But we still have that loss to secondary school, which is nearly 8 million in loss to families. And so looking at a socially just system, whilst we've pushed back the kind of cliff edge from coming off universal infant free school meals and primary, what we've effectively done as London is we've pushed that just further down the road to secondary. And new research evidence is showing that it's not simply investing in the first 1,000 days of life, but the first 8,000 days of life, which takes you to the end of secondary. So that's really important to note, because secondary school pupils are often ignored in this. And obviously during secondary school is when they're sitting exams, which often may determine to some extent their future career trajectories. Then if you look at the middle two columns there, you'll see the estimated cost to schools through lost pupil premium. Now this is important because this money will be lost to schools if means tested eligible families do not register. And you can see that's 30 million in primary and nearly 18 million in secondary. So we're not talking about chump change here. And then if you're on the one but last column, is about just over 14 million that's lost to individual pupils across boroughs by not being able to roll over their money. So this is what Hannah was talking about, of pupils at the end of the day, their money on their card being wiped. And that's something that we are campaigning quite vigorously on, because I think there's things that can be done. And we've piloted this approach up in the northeast here. I know it's not London, but we have shown it to work. Next slide, please, Hannah. So we basically use the data in that table to create a heat map across London boroughs. And what you can see really clearly there Let me just check what we're presenting so I know what it is. Yeah, this is cost to primary and secondary school pupils eligible but not registered. So this is the families. This is the cost to the families that's showing here. And if you map indices of multiple deprivation, it's a nearly perfect correlation. So in other words, the poorer the borough, the more likelihood they will have a higher proportion of children registered or eligible for means tested free school meal. So the more devastating the impact there. Next slide, please, Hannah. Sorry, did that move, Hannah? Oh, there we go. Okay. So this figure here, again, we did the same thing of taking the data out of the table to map premiums that show. Okay, I'll say that bit again. So we map the data from the table onto this map. And what you can see here are the cost to primary and secondary schools from lost pupil premium. So again, you can see it lines nearly perfectly with indices of multiple deprivation. Not quite, but pretty close. And final slide, please, Hannah. Okay, so what can be done about it then at the London level and the national level? So at the national level, at a minimum, we really need to campaign for DFE and DWP to implement auto enrollment of free school meals. This is a no-brainer, in my opinion. Whilst we are doing it individually at local authority level, at some ways, that's not an effective process, because every single borough and local authority across the whole of England is doing all of this work. And all it requires is a simple sharing of data and a slight change to the benefits process to allow the DWP to use data and individual families' data to means eligibility when they're means testing benefits, and the problem is solved. And it's a really good way of updating the system, because when that's a change in circumstances, somebody applies for a new benefit, that it's captured right there through the sharing at the national level. So that's a no-brainer. Why they haven't done it before, I don't know, because they should do it. What can we do across London to level up? Well, it's a bit of a sticking plaster for local authorities to adopt auto-enrollment. I know the GLA has had some templates made around auto-enrollment to support local authorities. That's about the best you can do in terms of auto-enrollment at the current time, but we should definitely push for that national level. And I am going to say, I think we should look in London at ensuring an equitable and inclusive approach to school meals across primary and secondary. It's coming up again. So the focus is always on the primary, and the research evidence actually suggests that that may not be the best model to adopt in terms of inclusivity, but also in terms of implementation and rolling the program out. In terms of impact, auto-enrollment is absolutely huge. It reduces the pressure both in the local authority, but also importantly at the school. And one of the ways of recognizing a free school meal pupil at school is when the business manager or teacher goes and talks to mum and dad. And I hate it at the school gates about signing up for free school meals. Let's wave the flag and say free school meal kid here, right? All of the kids know who's on free school meals. We also have to think, especially in secondary, where they can have that optional offer of making all food available for free school meals, so it's a level playing field. Children and young people in secondary identify free school meal children by what they're putting on their plates. It's really easy to do. Even I got it within about 5 minutes. So we want to really reduce the stigma. We have to make the offer much more universal. In terms of eating food at different times, I think everyone should have the same equity and choice, but I will put a bit of a caveat, a caution here. We have to be a little bit careful at eating at different times in terms of planning curriculum. So when you look at digesting food and you look at the blood-brain glucose barrier, there are optimal times for food ingestion to actually make sure that children are optimum at their cognitive performance and therefore educational attainment. So it's not straightforward, it's just pure choice. There's a reason for timings there. And we need to improve the dietary intake in and out of school that will reduce food insecurity and help with reduce obesity and help with household food insecurity. Auto-enrollment will increase funding that can be drawn down to schools and families, and therefore collectively work with the school and the free school meal, which is embedded in the whole school approach, to improve educational attainment, improve health, and reduce childhood obesity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greta. And our final speaker is Claudia Sumner, who is a research advisor at Camden Learning, where she supports school improvements across the borough through better use of evidence. Her areas of research include pedagogy, attendance, recruitment and retention of school staff, and inclusion. Before joining Camden, she worked on Cost of School Day, a project that supports schools to identify and remove the cost barriers that prevent children from fully participating in school life. Today, she'll be talking to us about what Camden is doing to encourage take-up of free school meals and to improve the school lunch experience for all pupils. Over to you, Claudia.
Thank you very much, Marina. I'm going to try and share my screen, I hope. Can you see that? Has that worked?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, right, yeah, so thank you very much for inviting me to speak, and thanks to Marina for chairing and introducing the speakers. I work at Camden Learning, which is the kind of education part of Camden Council. And I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in Camden in terms of free school meals and support really for children on low incomes. So we've got 40 primary schools, 10 secondary, 5 special schools. We've got 2 hospital schools. We've got Great Ormond Street, which is amazing, but a couple of Prues and a nursery school, Coram, which you may know. So it's a diverse inner London borough with a profile, diversity of lots of London boroughs. 41% of the pupils at Camden schools are eligible for free school meals at primary. 38% secondary are eligible for free school meals. 45% are in receipt of pupil premium. 58% non-white backgrounds, Black and ethnic minority, and about 55% of pupils speak a language in addition to English. So a diverse inner London borough. And we've tried to take a kind of whole school approach to food. We work with Magic Breakfast, and Magic Breakfast provide breakfast in all but one of the primary schools in Camden. And the school food department at the council is trying to increase our breakfast offer. We really want to extend our breakfast offer, and it varies from the kind of grab and go, a bagel or a piece of toast or something, to a kind of soft start in some schools where it's slightly more staggered start and the kids come in for breakfast before school. We are also funding supermarket vouchers for families who are in food crisis. And they are given out through head teachers on a really fairly discretionary basis. It's up to the heads to hand out those food vouchers to families that they perceive as being in trouble. It's primarily children who are eligible for free school meals, but if they perceive families to be in food poverty, they can give them free school meal vouchers. They're supermarket vouchers, so they don't have to spend them on food. They can spend them on, uniform or clothing or something else that the child might need. We've also got a lot of holiday provision, and we're looking at ways to, up the offer. So in terms of free school meals, last February, Camden voted to provide universal primary free school meals. So then once Sadiq Khan announced free school meals in London, that money could be reallocated, and it's being reallocated in some of the ways I've said in terms of things like vouchers and extending the breakfast provision. Uptake, I know that the mayor's kind of target is 90% uptake in schools, and the Camden schools, we don't actually have the official data yet, but we seem to be at about 90%. So we seem to be hitting the target. Children on free school meals are also eligible for a uniform grant when they're transitioning from year 6 to year 7 to secondary school. So they're kind of some of the ways that we're supporting low-income families. Schools are worried. Primary schools, like most schools across London, are worried about missing out on pupil premium, like Greta's been talking about. And the primary schools are trying to ameliorate this in various ways. As I say, giving out kind of supermarket vouchers to encourage families to engage and apply for free school meals. Parents are being invited in to the office, all parents, to apply for free school meals to check their eligibility. I mean, anecdotally, some heads are saying that if parents can show they've applied for free school meals, whether they're eligible or not, they'll get a free jumper. So there are kind of various ways that primary schools are trying to make sure that their pupil premium doesn't fall as a result of free school meals. The other thing that schools are saying to us is that because there's universal free school meals and every child gets a free school meal, telling them to apply for free school meals is really confusing for parents. And so they kind of basically want the process to have a different name, be it pupil premium or whatever, because parents can't get their head around the fact that they're having one, email saying, you don't have to worry about school meals anymore, you don't have to bring in packed lunches anymore, everyone gets a free school meal. And we're also asking them to fill out a form seeing if they're eligible for free school meals. So it's really kind of messing with the parents' heads and the communication from schools. So that's just one of the things that we've come across. One of the things that Camden's very conscious of is that the secondary free school meals offer is far from perfect, and that there is a lot of hunger in secondary schools, and we want to improve our offer really for secondary school kids. And to this end, Camden is actually undertaking some research. We're trying to speak to stakeholders and think about ways that Camden can provide better service to secondary school pupils. So we're speaking to the benefits team in the council, to the free school meals coordinator. We're speaking to the data team to try and understand the size and makeup of potentially eligible pupils who aren't applying but might be eligible. Sending out letters to parents, also talking to the other local authorities in London that have had universal going for a while, because there are a few, and I know a lot of them have been doing work on how to maximise their pupil premium while not having to apply for free school meals per se, and speaking to parents and going into schools and speaking to kids. So there's huge variability across Camden schools in terms of free school meal eligibility, ranging from 20% at some of the most affluent schools to 62% at some of the schools with the highest levels of school pupils living in poverty. One of the things we've also noticed from our research is that take-up is an issue. So it's not just applying for free school meals, it's whether you actually eat your free school meal when you are eligible. And so we've tried to try and determine the extent of that. I mean, our preliminary kind of indications seem to say that at some schools, up to half the kids who are eligible for free school meals and in receipt of free school meal funding are not actually eating their free school meal at lunch. So we're trying to find out why that is and try and change that. We've been thinking about the application process. As we've heard, as the other speakers have said, under application is a problem. Families are missing out on support and schools are missing out on pupil premium. So what are the barriers that are stopping people applying for free school meals? Uptake. people aren't using their free school meal allowance even when they are in receipt of it. And some of the kind of barriers that Hannah talked about could be, some of the contributory factors as to why there is this underuse of the free school meal allowance by pupils who are eligible and in receipt of it. And finally, as we all know, eligibility is a problem. Not everyone who would benefit from having free school meal support can get free school meal funding because they don't meet the threshold under the current national offer. And we really want to support families who aren't eligible for free school meals, but who need support. And I mean, I think everyone on this call will be aware that any extension of eligibility criteria to families who are in receipt of universal credit, or perhaps some other criteria, are incredibly costly for local authorities who are really up against it when it comes to budgets anyway. So much as I'm sure a lot of local authorities in London would like to make sure that all the pupils who are struggling financially, come from families who are struggling financially, would get free school meals, it might not be that easy. In terms of uptake, we really want to know why the kids who are eligible are sometimes not eating them. And this very much tallies with what Hannah was talking about. Some of the schools we've worked in, a lot of the schools we've worked in, have such high numbers of pupils in receipt of free school meals that is actually the norm. So we actually haven't found a huge amount of stigma associated with free school meals at a lot of the schools in Camden, because everyone's on free school meals, so it ceases to be an embarrassment. What we have found, though, is that there are problems with top-up, as we've heard about from other speakers. Parents whose children are eligible for free school meals, perhaps it not quite giving them enough food, or not giving them food at break time, or a range of other issues. So top-up has been raised as an issue. The way schools administer lunch obviously varies school by school. So the reason the pupils are telling us they're not eating their lunch varies school by school. It could be the size of the canteen, it's all too squashed, it's all too messy. Do you have to eat at certain tables? Can you eat with your friends? Are there different options when it comes to serving? I mean, the research found that in one school, if you have pasta, you can either have cheese or you can have sauce, but you can't have both. And these are the kind of things kids really notice. There are some students who just aren't eating at break time, aren't eating at lunchtime, which obviously is a real worry. And choice and the environment and other things the kids might want to do. If it clashes with football club, kids might just choose to skip lunch altogether. So we're trying to think about ways to make sure that the offer is designed around what the pupils want and what they'll use and what's friendly to them. Some of the lower income parents, be they eligible for free school meals or not, are worried about having to regularly top up their children's account. And we don't have enough data. There's Census Day data, but we don't have enough concrete data on the number of kids who are eligible and not applying, who are eligible and not eating, or who are in need of support. So we do need more data. As I said, we recognise that lots of kids don't meet the threshold who would benefit from free school meals. And it is a real concern. There are a lot of families living in food poverty in Camden. There's been a huge explosion of food banks, as there has been nationally. And we're looking at ways to improve the offer without breaking the bank, really. So those are some of the kind of thoughts that we're having in Camden. We'd love to work with other boroughs who have, bright ideas. It would be great to hear any suggestions that other boroughs have, or any of the people on this call. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudia. And thank you to all our speakers. So we're now moving to the question and discussion part of the evening. So I have some helpers here because I'm not very good at